Hey guys, my name's Bridget and today I am wearing hearts to counterbalance the piping hot tea that I am going to be spilling today. And that tea is going to be spilled because I'm talking about the popular books that I hate. The first book shouldn't be any surprise because I feel like I've talked about how I don't like it before on my channel, and that is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I don't like any of the characters. Plot was extremely confusing, and half the time I didn't even know what was happening. I can't explain the plot to you now. I have no clue what happened in this book. I was so confused and bored by the way the story was told. So much nothing happens in this book that you're just constantly waiting for something to happen. And then nothing happens. Or if something does happen, I don't see it because it's layered in all these complex ideas that I can't even fathom because I can't follow what's happening in the story to begin with. There were good descriptions of setting, but that wasn't enough to make me like this book at all. The writing was good, but it was extremely weird and made the story a lot more convoluted than it needed to be. It didn't help me understand what was happening, and it made me even more confused than I was before. I kept waiting for it to get better because everyone loves Neil Gaiman's books and everything, but wow, did I want to put it down the whole time I was reading it. The only reason I did not put it down is because I knew if I put it down I would never pick it back up, and it was our book of the month for Bookish Thoughts and Feelings, and I had to power through. Also, I just really hate leaving things unfinished, so I really needed to finish it. I've heard other books by him are good, but this makes me really unsure if I want to ever try them. Next book. The next book is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Everyone was raving about this book a few years ago, and I picked it up, expecting to love it. It was a dystopian book. I was hyped because I really liked dystopian at that point in time. But this is when I realized the genre was too convoluted, because it sounded like every other dystopian book you'd ever read mashed together into one book with all the cliches possible so you knew what was going to happen next. It was just so predictable. The characters were all very basic and didn't have much depth to them aside from their predetermined traits. Mare is a very selfish main character who doesn't care about anything other than herself, and that gets a lot of other people killed in the book. And sometimes those characters are turned out to be sympathetic, and even though they're very selfish, you're like, well, I'm rooting for her because I like her character. Nope, I didn't feel for her at all. All the women just hate each other automatically, which isn't right. Yes, they have powers and classes. Why is there nothing more than that? The love triangle was not good. The love triangle is a very hard thing to accomplish. The only love triangle I've seen done well is in the Infernal Devices because all of the characters care and love for each other in their own way. So you really care that the love triangle is happening. In this book, I didn't care about any of the characters, and it didn't seem like they had any real connection, so I didn't care about the love triangle. As I said before, it's like you slapped a bunch of other YA books together into one big book and hoped that it would do well. The cliches were all there, and the plot twist I saw coming from a mile away because it sounded like a very basic plot twist. The next book also shouldn't be too surprising because I feel like I've talked about how I don't like this book on my channel, but you know, it had to be here, and that's Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Wow! We had a whole live show just talking about why we didn't like this book for Bookish Thoughts and Feelings. But here, let's dive into why I didn't like this book. Why does Will let his disability define him? There should be more to his character than being a rich boy with a disability. It shows a lot of positive moments of them having fun and being happy throughout the book, only for it to not be enough in the end, which kind of made it seem pointless. The book also made it seem like Will had all of his choices taken away because he didn't have use of his arms and legs. But he makes plenty of choices deciding how to treat everybody like trash throughout the whole book. Are those not choices to you, man? I'm not disabled, so I can't speak for disabled people, but I have read a little bit about it, and it seems like most people adjust to their disability with the right time, support, and treatment. I feel like that's what should have been done with this character so he can learn from his experiences and have a better life rather than empowering him to kill himself. I get she's saying you can't make that decision for other people, but I was hoping that by the end he would realize that the people in his life who care for him are the ones who make his life worth living. Louisa has no motivation in her life until Will comes and changes it all for her. You gotta have the girl being rescued by the guy. Can't she have any other defining motivations? I actually just spilled tea by accident because I was moving my cup around too much. We also knew he was going to kill himself from the beginning. It didn't change anything, or there was no plot twist. Maybe he should have taken his own advice and tried to live his life as fully as possible now that he has his disability. He seemed to be getting happier while he's spending time with Louisa, and yet he doesn't change his mind in the end. Louisa's character's sexual assault seemed like it was added just to make her character more sympathetic so people would like her better. That should not have been the point of that plot arc, and it should have been taken care of much more carefully than it was in this book. So yeah. The next book is one that I'd heard about all over BookTube and everyone was raving about it and how amazing this book was, and I was really hoping I would like it going into it. You know that feeling that you have when you hear about a popular book and you're like, gosh, I hope I like it as much as these people do. And then you read it and you're sorely disappointed and you really didn't like it at all and you kind of hated it. Yeah, that's what I felt when I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. The info dumping in this book was insane. There was so much in there that did not need to be there, which in turn made the plot extremely slow and hard to get into. The world building is really good when they're underground and you're like, it's so interesting. And then you get to the top world and it's like every other dystopian book ever, and there's nothing unique to it. The main character was extremely annoying. I hated him. Sometimes when you hate a main character, that's kind of the point. That was not the point of this character. You're supposed to like him and root for him, and I really wasn't. There were also a lot of supporting characters that all just kind of seemed the same and blended into each other, and I couldn't tell the difference between them, and it got really confusing. The main problem in this book, though, was the sexism. In this futuristic world, where everyone has been genetically modified to be stronger and more powerful, you're telling me that women are still weaker than men? And alongside that, most of the women in the book are only there to serve as plot devices, like his wife dying so that he could go on to have this quest to get revenge for her, or they're just reduced to gender stereotypes like staying in the kitchen. Get out of here. The last book is one that I was really expecting to like because I really love what I've read from this author. I probably would have said she was one of my favorite authors before I read this book, which is really a bummer. Honestly, the more I think about it, the less I like it. Usually it's the other way around. That book is Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. Everyone on BookTube loves Rainbow Rowell. I love Rainbow Rowell. I'm a big fan of Fangirl and Carry On. So many people have raved about this book on BookTube. Well, Kiss even won an award. I went into this book thinking it would be another cute, fun book that Rainbow Rowell had written. Kind of like Fangirl, where she had problems and everything, but in the end it was just a cute little romance. And it was so much darker than that, and I was not expecting that at all. I didn't really understand the romance. Like, yes, they were on the bus together, and they slowly got to know each other through comics and music. But in the beginning, he's just like, what the heck? Why are you here? Get away from me. It was just a really weird transition in their relationship. It's strange because the whole time Park's like, she's so weird. No one likes her. He's constantly putting her down when he's talking about her. And yet he likes her a lot. So it confuses me. There were a lot of very dark circumstances in this book. Like, Eleanor's family life was terrible with her abusive stepdad. And yet at the end of the book, there's no payoff knowing about it because she just runs away. Is that supposed to be the end of the story? I feel like there's more to it than just her running away and it's all fine now. It seems really like a John Green book, which is not what I was expecting from Rainbow Rowell. And I realized after reading it that going in I knew nothing other than the characters' names and people saying it was really good. Even the description doesn't tell you anything about the story other than that they like each other, which is dumb, and they should tell you and kind of warn you that they have this terrible family life. So I'm gonna give it a real description so that you people out there know what you're getting yourself into if you read this book. It's about Eleanor, a girl who lives in an abusive household, and Park, an Asian American kid who just wants to live under the radar. And at first when Eleanor arrives to town, they get off to a bad start, and then they bond over music and books. That description doesn't really give anything away about the story, it just tells you what you're actually in for. The real thing I wanted to hear about in this description is the fact that Eleanor lives in this abusive household. It's never mentioned, and yet that's such a big plot point that would have turned me off from reading it at that time. I was looking for a cute book, and this was not it. I'm not saying this book was bad. I understand how it touched people when they read it and everything, but I think I hated it because I went in with a different perspective on what this story was going to entail. So whoops. So those were some popular books I hated. That's the tea. Thanks for coming on this journey with me to talk about books I didn't like. Subscribe for more bookish content because I make that frequently. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Every like is another sip of piping hot tea. And comment down below some popular books that you hated. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. It should be up very soon, so I'll see you guys then, okay? Bye! The tea has been spilled.